Terry and I are here today to discuss some of the new ideas that Landmark are developing in the fields of farm services. So plant tissue analysis is something that has been around for a while, but what we've been doing with it is looking at a whole farm approach of tying that in with the soil tissue testing and using good NADA accredited laboratories to get the real facts on what the soil health and the plant health in the crop is doing and where we can take that to improve farmer profitability. So Terry, you've been working with this farmer for a couple of years now. How have you started moving in and using plant tissue analysis as part of the cropping cycle?
Well, actually on this particular farm I've taken over the agronomy about 3 years ago, and one of the first things that we decided to do was a soil test on this particular field right behind us here. The soil test results come back very low in nitrogen, which is what we expected. It's been fairly run down country, so we knew what we were dealing with off the word go. The next crop we put in was a wheat crop. We did put down some pre-plant fertiliser. However, I was speaking with Gav and we decided that because of the nature of the soil test, we really should do some plant tissue tests to see how the crop was progressing really. I might also add that this field is under pivot irrigation, so we really needed to make it work.
Make it pay.
Make it work for itself. You know, we couldn't have a low yielding crop with such high infrastructure costs. We did a plant tissue test, and the first one we did wasn't coming back too bad. We were pretty happy with the nutritional status of the crop.
So you're using a trend analysis to really see whether it's going up, down, and what the changes are throughout the season.
So throughout the season we do probably 3 tests, one at the start, one in the middle, one towards the end, just to see how it's faring. Each stage of crop development has different or varying nutritional demands.
Well, where that comes into it, I mean, as a plant develops, you're going to get analytes moving throughout the plant into the growth points, and that's going to obviously interact too with the rain's coming through and where the weather development has hopefully come through and given us a bit of yield increase. And not to mention anything as far as diseases, plant pests that can all impact on plant health as well as the nutritional status of the crop.
So this crop here actually threw a bit of a curveball at us. About not quite midway through the season, we were starting to notice some what seemed to be nitrogen deficiency symptoms in the crop. So perfect time, jump in, do a plant tissue analysis. The nitrate levels in the crop were sky high. They were through the roof, and we didn't know why that was when we were exhibiting signs of nitrogen deficiency. So upon further analysis and help through some other agronomists, we found that the trace element balance was out of whack, which didn't allow the nitrogen or the nitrate in the crop to metabolise, built up to such high levels
that it was still inducing a deficiency.
It was inducing a deficiency.
That wouldn't have been able to be fixed by adding more nitrate.
No, that's right. So in fact, most people would jump in and throw some urea, probably throw some urea out, whereas in this case it was probably the worst thing we could do, and we wouldn't have found that unless we'd done these plant analysis.
So have you used that then when planning for this year's crop? Your starter fertilisers and your regimes through there? We've
had a bit of a fertiliser blend go onto this field, just try to bring that trace element analysis back into.
And is Gav happy and wanting to keep monitoring now that he's seen some of the value?
He is, yeah, and he's going into some pulse crop rotations too, because as I said, it still was low in nitrogen, but by bringing those trace elements back into the right ranges, the crops are starting to get a lot healthier.
And I think that's a really important thing to get across, that soil tests are really valuable for planning your nutrition for the year, but they're before you've planted. Whereas a plant tissue analysis, going in there and actually seeing what the crop is doing at that place and at that point in time, can help you not only judge what you've just been doing and reassess for next year, but also diagnose on the spot how to go in and fix it.
Yeah, these new tools that we're using, a combination of the soil tests and the plant tissue analysis, has really allowed us to move from more of a reactive type management to a proactive type management, where we can be on top of it before before things really start to go haywire.
And I mean, I think that's one of our benefits in the company, because we're using good solid agronomists to be interpreting these tests. They can take in the whole approach. They're not just looking at sufficiency numbers on a screen and saying high, low, high, low. It's got to go a lot more whole farm than that, and whole cycle. If you're not really paying attention to and being in the crop regularly, you're not really going to have a reference point of what to do with those numbers.
Yeah.
So I think where we could go from here is we might have to have a bit of a chat to Gav and see how he's feeling about the entire project.
That's right. Well, Gav's actually got 2 circles here under pivot irrigation. He's just put down a bore over in the next field, and there'll be another 2 circles go down over there. So we're going to be looking at replicating the same types of management over there, and actually across his whole farm. So he's quite happy with the way we're starting to go. All right, Sharon, so we're just basically going out to find the GPS coordinates of where we had the soil test.
So you've been testing here for 3 years, and
Yes.
you can keep coming back to the same spot?
To the exact same location, yes. Actually, it looks a bit this way. And we are spot on right here, right?
So how many samples do you generally take, Terry?
About 10 samples.
Yep.
Trying not to get any dirt in the sample, because that'll give us extra high iron readings. Just more of a contamination issue, really. That's a lot more of a sample than we probably need, but it never hurts to have too much.
So the crop's looking pretty healthy, but it's not
actually
necessarily a saying that's nutritionally imbalanced.
There's no symptoms showing up in crop here at all at the moment. It looks like quite a healthy crop. We can see some really active, fresh root growth here. The tops of the plants are looking quite well. There's no symptoms of any dramas at all.
Which is excellent. So if we keep monitoring it and check that it's on track and there's nothing that's going to pull us up later and
That's right.
cut back the yield.
As long as we keep an eye on it now, be proactive about it, there's no reason why we can't start getting those top end yields.
Well, we've got the moisture, so we'll go from here.
Oh, it looks like Gav's coming in now. We might just go get that saw core and put a core down.
Gav.
Gav, how are we? Good. Good to see you.
Terry.
Sharon and I are just going to put a saw core in.
All right, yep.
And do that test we were talking about doing earlier.
Yep.
So let's get into it. Back down here, only to 60 centimetres today. That's about it, really.
Yeah. I mean, Terry, the thing I really like about this software is that we're keeping a long-term record of all the farmers' information, so you can pull out that trend analysis. And I mean, some of the other areas nationally that I've seen, they're using it for really long-term nutrition plans on tree crops, on horticultural crops. But even in the broadacre section, being able to really assess long-term what your potassium, your phosphorus, your nitrogen are doing, and whether you're either running it down or building up luxury in some fertilisers. So overall, it's a pretty handy tool.
Some of the capabilities that the software has that I'm a big fan of is this one in particular, the status section.
Oh, yeah.
It gives a brilliant snapshot of the nutritional status of the crop.
It's nice and visual. You can look it over. You could show this to a farmer.
Exactly. And it's a one-pager. You don't have to go scrolling through.
Lots and lots and lots of paperwork. But then you can still sit here and adjust all your different analytes to really locally drill it down.
The recommendations section of the software, it gives an idea as to what ideally should be going on based on what's currently in the soil and what we aim to do, our yield targets. But as I'm saying, we have the ability to alter those based on
Well, you
our own
can put
knowledge.
in your custom blends. You can play around with it, give the farmer a couple of different scenarios, and then come down to what's the most valuable.
To tailor it a little bit more based off our own local knowledge.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've got a lot of confidence in the tables. These have been pulled out of DPI research, public domain research, soil research, all over the shop, collated and really put into critical values. But then all your tests, like phosphorus and such, they need to be locally ground truthed. So having the senior agronomist overseeing the entire program means that no matter where you are in whichever state, you can have confidence that the numbers make sense.
Exactly.
When you go into details and reports, you're obviously aware there's quite a few different types of report. Whether if the farmer wants something on the fly just to get the nitrogen done, you can have it to them quick as can be, as soon as the lab test results are back. And go from there, but then you can get a really good comprehensive report to hand over the farmer so that they've got that as a reference to go back to and can really build up some data on their phone, like bringing the science back into the paddock rather than...
And those reports are very visual, which is what farmers really need to, just so they can really get a good picture in their own mind.
Well, we'll just print these out for Gav and... send them off.
No worries, and we'll go have a chat with him and see what he thinks.
So Gav, on your farm, what are your goals as far as your productivity is concerned?
Well, we're quite happy to spend a bit more money, knowing at the end of the day that our profitability will rise and that you guys are keeping a check on things through all this tissue testing and monitoring of the crops.
Well, you've invested a lot in the crop, so you don't really want to start out well without keeping monitoring, I guess. We'll have a bit of a discussion about, I guess, what you guys have been doing this season and where you go to from here.
Off the back of what happened 2 years ago, Gav and I had a discussion at the start of the season. We thought we better get in and do some soil tests just to see what we were dealing with prior to planting the crop.
So you've got these here.
As I was discussing earlier, we had that nitrate issue and trace element imbalance. So what we did was we went back to the exact same location we took the first soil test. We can do that through the GPS that we use. And the whole reason for that is so we can notice a trend over time at that one location and just to eliminate any variability.
So you're getting those repeatable results that are site-specific?
Site-specific, yeah.
Okay.
So we went back to that same location, put a soil core down, sent that off to the lab to get some results.
Yeah, so Terry, where do we actually send them to?
Oh, okay, basically we have a choice of labs across Australia. I think we've got about 4 of them that we can choose from. All of these labs are ASPAC accredited and NADA accredited, which means that we could send the same sample to any one of those labs and be confident that we'll get the exact same results.
How soon will we get the results back from this tissue test?
With the tissue testing, we get these results back within the week. We need to get those results back pretty fast because if we need to make some appropriate action, whether it be foliar fertilisers or any other application, we can get that done in good timing.
That's good. So these are the results, Terry. Can you explain them to me?
Sure, Gav. What's happened is the results, once they come back from the lab, it comes into my inbox. I import it into our interpretation software, which allows me to look through the nutritional status of the crop, and then I can go over it and basically do a bit of an interpretation, see what possibly needs to be altered in the crop, and then I can make a recommendation off the back of that.
And Gav, the sufficiency ranges that we've put into this interpretation software is landmark intellectual property. So this is based on not only good solid scientific soil research, we've adjusted it so that it locally suits the area. I mean, there's no point in having a one product fits all for all the cropping zones of Australia. So we use our senior agronomists and they've got the knowledge. What underpins Landmark's plant analysis system is that we have good sufficiency ranges that have been not only developed by scientific studies in the field, they're also been locally interpreted. So your local senior landmark agronomist has had input and intellectual property into this whole process. So they're not just common numbers that are generic to the industry, they're very site specific on your area.
Well, thanks very much, guys, for coming out and talking me through all the results and stuff, and it's been very informative.
No worries, Gav.
No worries. All these new ideas that we're developing and putting out nationwide, that's our way of putting science back into the paddock.